Welcome to part 5 of Surviving the West. It is a long story, and you really should start at the beginning. This series is written by the fantastical HughEhhoule.
Before y'all start questioning why I don't sound like a dope sick poet this go around, you fine folks get to hear a little bit from yours truly, Curtis Fine. Don't worry none, Andy's just fine, considering. But as he put it, a tale about his last week would be boring as hell and twice as long, and I was the unfortunate recipient of a damn interesting few days. But let's get to know each other a bit, shall we? You all know the basics, what I do, how I act, and why I'm not turning tail and running as fast as I can now that all this Hallows Eve bullshit has started. But I was also a soldier, right side of the war, in case you were wondering. And while there is a lot of the war I'd like to forget, there is a hell of a lot more that I learned. Not the other side would have been much of an option. The reason should be half obvious to those of you who pay attention. If I was a man more inviting of conflict, I'd go by my father's name, Feinberg. I've got no shame in my roots, but I've also got no urge to get in a bust-up every time some idiot decides they don't like the cut of my, let's just say, jib. Never been married. Felt putting any poor woman through the trials of dealing with myself would have been in bad taste. I like to think I'm a good man, but I'm a man who hates some of the things I've done, and lacks spirit more than he should. Not a combination that leads to a happy household. But as far as a lawman, I strive to be fair, and I'd rather use my words than my fist, and my fist than my gun. And if I could find a way to solve a problem with using none of the above, even better. "What the hell are you eating, Kurt?" said Oliver, a generally good-natured man that had drank what I assumed to be a barrel of whiskey the night before, and made enough ruckus to be locked up for the night. He's the type of guy that reminds you of a starving dog, always looking 2 meals for the day and with a scavenging kind of look about him. What I'm eating is preserved salmon, and you'd not have to smell it if you had any sense of where to draw the fucking line with your liquor. And if you like being out of that cell by the time it starts announcing its exit, I'd shut up and allow me the opportunity to enjoy my breakfast, I replied with a loud slurp of coffee. I set up Oliver with a plate of eggs, toast, and a black coffee before opening the cell door. He eats, and his hungover slurrishness turns into embarrassed apologies. I see him out the door, but find myself put a hand on his shoulder as I catch a crowd milling about the front of Calhoun's bar. Nervous energy. On a normal day, I'd assume someone caught a knife to the gut in a brawl, but since the circus decided to move up down the road, I've become the paranoid sort. "Ollie, you want to earn a free pass the next time you piss in a spittoon? Watch my back while I check out whatever the hell's going on at Calhoun's," I ask. Ollie, acting in a fashion completely at ease with his appearance, mumbles some excuse about things to do and he walks away. I keep an eye on the roofs, the alleyways, windows, anywhere an ambush is possible as I walk over. Something is screaming at me to watch out. Thing is, wisdom is knowing that paranoia and complacency both get you killed. So I don't draw my guns or my knife. I don't even keep a severe look on my face. I walk up friendly as the day is long and address the crowd. "Someone dead or someone lose their bowels?" I ask, very much hoping for the second option. No one replies, except for Elroy Cruz, who points into the bar. Beyond the back wing doors, the bar is almost empty. Calhoun himself, a tall man with dark skin and grease-black hair, stands behind the bar. One of his serving girls, her name escapes me, stands nearby. The lone patron sits at a table in the middle of the room. I can't see much more than an old 10-gallon hat, leather vest, and blue plaid shirt. The man looks skinny, doesn't seem to have any friends around. None of this explains why the owner and his employee look like they have a gun trained on them. Not one to waste time, I walk in. Not sneaking, letting my boots announce my presence long before I announce it. "Hey, Calhoun, how's business?" I say, still cordial, trying to keep this situation from boiling over. He's cleaning a glass that probably hasn't had a spot on it since he started. The man seems afraid to make a noise, simply looking at the lone stranger sitting in the bar. I turn towards the stranger and have to keep my face impassive. He's shaped like a man, in a very roundabout way. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, all the standards. But that's where the similarities to anyone I've met end. His skin is dull gray, eyes nothing but dead stare of a rat, cold black orbs. Spines, maybe 8 inches long, lay like porcupine quills on his neck, his forearms, and now that I'm close enough, I can even see the odd one poking through his vest or hat. He smiles at me with needle-like teeth. His black tongue wets his lips, and I'm sure he thinks he looks scary. I think the freak show looks like a sick possum. "Anything the matter, officer?" It says in a tone that makes me want to rethink my stance and put hands on someone. "Not too sure. Just came in here to see why half the town seems to be afraid to come in." My tone is impassive. "Oh, you know how it is. These little towns, they always have a bunch of shit kickers who are scared of anyone that's a little different. Surprised they've let you stay this long, my Hasidic friend." His grin stretches farther than it has any right to. Now I'm worried. Who or whatever this thing is, it knows more about me than I do about it. I pull up a chair, making a show of turning my back to the chupacabra-looking bastard as I retrieve it. I sit down and fix him with a smile of my own. First, not all Jews are Hasidic. Could have just said Jewish. Don't take me the wrong way. I don't care what the shitheel sing in my lineage either way. But lets me know that you like to think people are smarter than you are. Second, I'll be the first one to make sure anyone is welcome in my town. Unless, of course, the person in question is here to cause a bunch of shit. In which case, Old Testament will not even begin to describe what I put you through, Pointy. My statement is met with seconds of silence that stretch out for what feels like an hour. "You think you have what it takes to put someone like me down? I'm the thing that was hiding under your goddamn bed when you were still soiling yourself. I'm what you fear at night when you hear a rustling in the forest. You're an old man that hasn't even come face to face with darkness till this moment. You sad little..." I don't let him finish. I draw my pistol and fire a round in his general direction. He's up from the chair faster than I can see, and trying to look casual as he keeps his eye on the firearm. "Officer, I'm appalled. You would shoot an unarmed man?" His schoolyard bully tone thickens as he turns around, showing no gun belt, knife, or other weapons. "Shouldn't bother you if I don't have what it takes to put you down. But seems to me you had no interest in a love tap from my iron here, which tells me you are a bit of a liar, as well as a moron. Am I correct?" "I think I am." I stand, slowly. There's a short space between us, and I intend to keep it for as long as I can. "Officer, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you were trying to start a fight. I might begin to feel my honor has been impugned. A gentleman wouldn't be saying that while holding a pistol on an unarmed man." The last part is said as a direct threat. A fight is a fight to the death. Unless you're in the ring with a referee, you don't let the other guy dictate how you fight. I put my pistol away. If what you're asking is if I'm willing to take this outside, I sure am, Slim. It saved my friend some property damage. I undo the button on my cuffs, rolling up my sleeves. As we near the bar, I grab an apple. Andy told me this kind of thing is called foreshadowing. The crowd parts. I'd make a Moses reference, but I think we've had enough Torah talk for one day. The creature takes off its vest, then its shirt and hat. A long strip of spikes runs down its entire body. It stretches out, cracking its neck, looking a lot more fearsome. Rock-solid muscle and intimidating spines covering its body. I take my time, stripping myself of my guns, my knife, my blackjack, dragging it out, almost mocking his performance. I take a few steps toward him and look as if I forgot something. I pull out a small penknife, shaking my head, and walk back to the barrel I've been setting my belongings on. I put the knife down, having no intent on using its laughable blade. I throw the apple sidearm, keeping my body turned away until the last second. If you've ever been hit by an apple thrown by someone who knows what they're doing, you are likely not going to understand the kind of impact we are talking. This isn't some slapstick splatter. No, an apple is about as close to a long-range punch in the face as exists. The fruit pops, crushing the tiny nose of the creature. Just like any man I've met when this happens, his hands fly up to his face, trying to stem the sudden tide of blood. 4 steps gets me close enough to level a kick intended to solve the mystery of the sex of this critter. Steel-capped boots hit something that pops, much like an apple, and the spiny prick falls on his face, moaning. I look to the crowd. I make eye contact with every man and woman who stood by as this unfolded. Find your goddamn sand, folks, because this horse shit ain't going anywhere. But these things, they ain't demons. I punctuate this by kicking the prone monster. He snarls, but hasn't found the wits to do anything else. They are flesh and bone. I laid this one out with a trick any bar fighter would have seen coming. And if I so choose, I'll be wearing his skin by the end of the day. The thing grabs my boot. He gets a few broken fingers for his trouble. I reach down, grabbing a handful of spines on his head, dragging him roughly to his feet. He tries to pull away, and I grab the stub of his nose between 2 knuckles and squeeze till he settles down. You all get back to eating and drinking. I'm sure Rory spit nails not selling a damn thing this morning. I'll get this sore asshole back where he came from. I'm already marching the thing towards his camp as I finish the statement. I'm far enough down the road. I know anyone looking for the horde sees us, but I'm not so close as to give anyone a clean shot. You tell your boss, or whatever the hell he is, next thing that comes into my camp with ill intent, I'm not treating it like a man. I'm treating it like a rabid animal, and it'll be lucky if I don't turn into a new coat. And with this, I send the wounded, half-naked thing away, but not without a literal swift kick in the ass. I intend to be alone with my thoughts, walk the streets for a while, smoke a cigar. But, like everything lately, that doesn't go according to plan.
Come around the side of my joint. I'd have a conversation.
I hear, not from any particular direction. Now, Andy gave me the rundown of what happened when he went in Lem's building. And being a half-smart sort, I put 2 and 2 together pretty quick. Sorry, Lem, but I've done one smart thing this morning, and I'm thinking of making it 2. I say, assuming he can hear.
Then give me 2 minutes of your time, lawman. If I could just reach out and grab you, why wouldn't I have done so already?
I don't ask myself why a wild dog bites me. I just don't put my hand near one, I say with a smirk. Then a laugh as I realize I don't even know where I should be smirking.
I have made a mistake, Curtis, and I'd seek palaver with one who has as much to lose as myself, should my mistake turn out costly.
This piques my interest. I decide the risk is likely worth the reward and make my way to the surprisingly dark alley between Lem's place and the abandoned livery. I pull out one of my cigars, a combination of pipe tobacco, sage, and cannabis flowers, something I picked up from a Chippewa fellow to help arthritis. You got about 10 minutes, a little shorter if you start pissing me off and I smoke quicker, I say, popping a match with my thumb and igniting it.
You and I have had a tense peace, but we have kept some form of civility, Curtis. Your friend, I didn't like how he approached the situation, and for whatever reason, he got my blood up. I called it a favor, a big favor. I intended to frighten him away, maybe make the peons around here stop making a fuss, but I didn't plan on your friend having so much value. They want him, and no boon nor debt owing is going to dissuade them.
You ain't telling me a damn thing I didn't already know, Lem. Which leads me to believe that it isn't really telling you're interested in. You're looking for something. Out with it. I've never dealt with something like Lem before, but I'm not giving him the chance to get in my head. Lem's tone is restrained, barely containing rage. Reminds me of some officers I knew who didn't grasp the concept that when shit really hits the fan, everyone is equal.
I propose a free exchange of information, and, if possible, aid. You don't want to trust me, and I have centuries of reasons not to trust your kind. But the Horde, they aren't some gang or mob. They are a storm that leaves nothing but devastation. We both want this town to be standing and full of people at the end of the day. Once we are in the clear, maybe we can come to an agreement between ourselves. Or maybe we are at each other's throats again. But neither of us end up dead or dying in a crater of a town, watching the Harlequin take away your friend for reasons known only to him.
I let the statement hang in the air, taking long, casual puffs of the cigar. Let me tell you a story, Lem. My father's people, you know where they like to conduct business? Not in a saloon or an office. No, they're smart. They do all their dealings in steam baths. Or so he said, for what it's worth. Now, when I asked him why, he told me, if someone won't show you the Johnson, they won't tell you the plans. Sounds better in Hebrew, but the point stands. Lem, drop your towel. Tell me what you are, why you're here. Then we can do business. I realize I actually sound a bit like the old man when I say this. I let the cigar burn down to a stub, not getting so much as a grunt in reply. I thought so. You come back to me when you're as worried about this as I am. Till then, keep your secrets and yourself in your little hellhole. I spend the rest of the afternoon drinking, heavily. See, Andy, from what he says, has had a life full of this kind of stuff and seems about as impressed at it as a drunk with a short glass. Me? I can keep stone-faced. I can do what I need to do, but once I'm not in the thick of things and the reality of what's going on sets in, I got lucky with the thing in the bar, but it's not going to be the best of them. He was a scout, and being in the army, I can tell you, most of the time, a scout's just the most obnoxious guy in camp. Lem, he scares me. He reminds me of the stories my dad would tell when he was deep in his cups. The dark tales of the old country, full of unstoppable demons and swarming creatures. Something I can't grab by the balls or shoot in the face. That hits me deep. As someone who has faced down every horror man has invented, looking at absolute proof that every terror wielded by a child of God is child's play, that makes a man feel small. But hopelessness kills more men in war than bullets, blades, or bombs. So my sad drinking turns into angry drinking, which turns into a dark, scheming mood, punctuated by shots of burning spirits. My eyes close to slits, and my sigh could rattle a window as I hear Ollie knocking and shouting through the jail door.
Kurt, you in there, Kurt? You're gonna want to see this. Kurt, wake up.
I throw the door open, cutting Ollie off. You're gonna want to be a lot quieter and a little more clear, Ollie. Assuming you want to leave with all the teeth you came here with. I growl, leading him in and lighting a lantern to assist the sad stub of a candle I've been seething and drinking next to.
Sorry, Kurt. And sorry about this morning, but you are going to want to hear this. Been drinking at Calhoun since I was sure you weren't coming back. Guessed you'd be sore about me taking off. I think the freak show sent a reply to the message you sent, Kurt. I might be wrong. It don't look like no demon or monster. Not like before, but Something strange is happening, Ollie says. And again you run from danger? I say, dumping the last cup of coffee from a cold pot into a glass that might pass as clean in the dark. I got a yell streak, Kurt. I'm the first man to say it, but I'm not lying to you. I'd be a braver soul if I knew what the hell was going on here, but I don't. So I brought it to you. Ollie can't make eye contact. The man's a coward, but he has enough spine to be ashamed of that fact, at least. I tell Ollie to go find someplace safe while I put on my guns, sheath my blade, and, just in case, put a sawed-off shotgun down one boot. I commend the man for offering to help out, but a drunken coward rushing into something he has less than no idea about, that is a friend that will make you never lack for enemies, if you catch my drift. I walked to Calhoun's for the second time that day, feeling as if this little staring contest we've been having with that caravan of freaks is turning into an all-out war real quick.
In my experience, most groups will do whatever they can to stall hostilities. At the end of the day, goals and morals aside, most men would rather sit around a campfire telling all the ways they're gonna kill the enemy than pick up a weapon and go do such. But these guys, I feel they're aching for a fight, to be wrist-deep in blood and guts. There have been no warning shots, or rather, there have been fired long ago. Everything going on now is either going to be preparing the battlefield or mounting an attack. At the absolute least, metaphorically speaking. Before I get to the bar, something comes flying at me from the general direction of Lem's place. It hits the ground in front of me. I'm backing off, one gun drawn, scanning the roof of the ominous building. I'm half sure the item at my feet came from.
Calm the hell down, lawman,
Lem says, exasperated, in my head.
That's a favor lying at your feet, not a fucking rattlesnake.
I look down and see three things. A small, cheap Derringer and two strange-looking shotgun shells. Clear casing with a brass primer. I recognize the gunpowder and the wadding, but the random assortment of stuff replacing the lead shot, I don't. You got any explanation? I say, hoping for a response. I get none. Well, screw you too, then, I say, loading the shotgun shells into my scattergun. I don't necessarily trust Lem, but I've tried everything I can. No harm in seeing if his spooky ass was extended an olive branch or a painted snake. The bar, this time, is far from empty. Piano music blaring, voices raised enough I can hear the conversations long before the glaring light from within illuminates my weary worried face. I half expect as much. You see, I've seen subtlety in war, and I've seen soldiers simply led by a man who thinks they're subtle, when in fact they might as well put their name on a 20-foot sign ahead of their troops. And in my opinion, that clown leading the freak show, he's not the subtle type. No, he's the type that feels every act requires an immediate response, and that response isn't worth shit if it doesn't have his scent all over it. Tobacco smoke pours out of the doorway as I enter. The place is damn near every man in town, from those from their first beard hairs to those who can't remember the original color of said beard since it's turned to gray. And that was my first clue something was up. Calhoun's, especially after the sun goes down, is a Johnson-heavy environment. But there are always a handful of women about. Girls for rent, a couple of big women who would rather break their back mining than never leave their home being a wife. Or just a local sewing circle looking for a better night in the town than try not to prick their fingers in dim candlelight. But as I look around the room, I can't find a single example of the women in this town. In fact, there's only one woman I see in the entire place, surrounded by a dozen very large, very drunk miners. This is the second strange thing I notice. Say the men in my town are a friendly lot. I can say this because I'm not a 5.5-foot tall Asian lady that is leaps and bounds prettier than any female that's ever passed through this town, let alone this bar. If I was, I'd be scared shitless of a dozen massive strangers and probably don't have the highest opinion as to the worth of my race. But this woman, she's confident. She doesn't show a second of hesitation or concern for the leering goons around her. She looks to be in her 20s, wearing a red dress that should be torn to ribbons around the ankles or at least smeared with mud and horse crap, but is somehow cleaner than the glasses in this bar. but her eyes are what gives me a cold feeling in the pit of my stomach. Bright green, flecked with gold, with long pupils, like a cat. Let me rephrase that. Not like a cat. That makes it sound like I'm the type of person that wears a hood. That woman had cat's eyes. I force a grin and wave for the guys as I walk up to the table. "How's it going tonight here, boys? And you, little lady, would it be rude of me to inquire as to your name?" I take a seat. While I barely make notice of the men standing around, the woman with the cat's eyes is sizing me up within a moment. As she opens her mouth, I feel something. A nagging feeling that tries to calm me down, take away my suspicion, and has a few other effects I don't feel comfortable talking about in mixed company.
Elaine Kim, Curtis, and pleased to meet you. I've been having quite the time getting to know the residents of your town. Good to meet a local political figure.
She's from Japan, Kurt. Can you believe it? Japan.
One of the men milling about screams with a mug of cheap beer-scented breath. "That's interesting, Will," I say, directed my next statement to Elaine. "That true, ma'am? That's quite some way to travel for bad whiskey and worse company." She grins. I can't quite place what's wrong with her teeth, but somehow it doesn't detract from her beauty.
Well, my parents were from there. Me, I've been traveling this great land since I was a child.
She flips her long black hair, and I'm surprised half the men around don't faint. I mull the information over, feeling something isn't quite right. I see the set of tattoos on her left shoulder, leaning close to the jealous stares of the patrons around me. She leans toward me. The look on her face tells me she thinks she's put her hooks in me. Once a man learns English, there are a few other languages that are a lot easier to learn. Spanish, French, German, they all use the same basic structure. Now Hebrew gives you a little bit of a head start on Asian languages, and living in a mining town as a kid gives you a lot of opportunity to meet some Asian folks, if you ain't an asshole anyway. Now, as someone who isn't an asshole, I've got a few questions. You have a Korean last name, you say your parents are from Japan, and if I don't miss my guess, that is Chinese script on your shoulder. Now, I'd normally chalk things up to me not knowing half what I think I do, but then I look at those eyes of yours, and that bulge right above the base of your spine, and I have to think that maybe, just maybe, there ain't much Japanese, Chinese, or Korean about you. Now, this more than likely hot-on inducing look is nothing more than a mask of sorts, and where you're really from is about 300 yards outside town. I keep my face happy, my posture relaxed as I fall back into my chair.
Now that is an interesting theory, Curtis, she says, not dropping her act for a second. But I have a feeling it wouldn't be very popular among the patrons here.
And she is right. The pointy bastard this morning was a blunt instrument, something to rile folks up and put some fear into them. This woman, she's a real plan, a nefarious tactic. If I were to treat her the same way I did the porky prick, I'd be fighting off the entire bar within a minute. If I ignore her, she's the tip of the wedge that could divide the town. In a casual way, I make my leave, watering the bar, making small talk, getting a general feel for the situation. It feels like shit. Every conversation ends up being about Elaine. At first, I just assumed we were talking woman-starved guys digging with their peckers. But the more I talk, the more I feel there's something more than the natural faults of men causing this. This is the point where I could whip out the scattergun and try to put those 2 shells in her back while she's leading around a group of roughnecks like the Pied Goddamn Piper. But that would be more faults of men making the situation worse. Let an anger take a hold of me when caution and thought are what's needed. So I make an Irish exit, intending to go back to the jail and crack into the rainy day fund. Now, originally I was going to omit specifics of my plan for the sake of brevity. Really, the point is, I cracked in my wallet to avoid bloodshed. But Andy thought y'all would get a kick out of how I pulled off getting her out of that bar. I slammed down $300 worth of gold on the bar, beckoning Calhoun over, out of earshot. Then another $200 once I've told him my plan in its entirety. I look for Elaine, but she somehow manages to find me first. considering at one point in my life I could pick a Confederate soldier out of a dense forest in the middle of the night. This concerns me. She runs a hand on my spine. I can feel nails, sharp as a razor, briefly nick my flesh. Just a little show of power, but one that isn't taken lightly. I turn to face her, and the look on her face is distilled power. I feel silly taking a step back from her when she doesn't even pass my shoulders, but I'm also not an idiot.
Come to apologize, Kurt, she says. My dance card isn't nearly full yet.
She takes a step closer, and I step back, hooking a chair with my right foot and putting it between us. A baser man would have been rejoinder for that statement, I say, trying and failing to meet her stare. No, I'm here to ask you to leave. If you got no ill intent, feel free to take a couple roughnecks back to your cave. But if they show up missing anything more than dignity, there will be consequences. She looks shocked, but in an enraged way. Suddenly, I'm very glad to be in a public place. She kicks the chair away with no effort. Before I could blink, she's chest to chest with me. I feel something cold and hard digging into the bottom of my ribs. She holds a small 6-shooter, her hand wrapped around the barrel, not pointed upward at myself, but aimed directly at her own heart.
Or what, son of Abraham? You're gonna shoot me? Stab me? Burn me at the stake?
Her accent suddenly isn't some vague, exotic, almost Asian, but in angry Welsh. 6 tiny pops, muffled by our bodies and more so by her hand. 6 pulls of the trigger, sending 6 bullets deep into her chest. I feel the powder burn me, the scalding heat of the gun, even a brief splatter of blood. This is no trick, but neither does it bother her in the slightest. She steps back, holstering the gun in a fluid move, having nothing more than a briefly noticeable hole in her dress. She looks like she's going to say something, no doubt some dark promise or threat. But behind the bar, the ear-splitting sound of a brass bell cuts through the din.
Put your drinks down and pick up your ears, you lot of hooligans and drunks. Tonight we'll be having the first annual Calhoun's Cussing Contest. And this is no 2-bit operation, boys. Free drinks for all them who wants to participate. And cash prizes topping out at $150 for first, second, and third place. Get in an orderly line, fellas. Any that aren't ready to make their X in 5 minutes can stay sober and pound sand.
Calhoun punctuates this by firing off an old Colt Army into the ceiling. The chorus of cheering and hollering seems to shake the room. Now, for those that don't know, a cussing contest is the closest to any kind of theater or performance most folks from remote areas will ever see. But don't let that give you the wrong impression. This is no production of Shakespeare. This is half talent show, half dirty dozens with an ever-looming potential for a fistfight. First, all the men who want to join will showcase a talent. Sharpshooters and magicians need not apply. Being vulgar is the only way to win. Sometimes this is a joke or a story. Some men will pop out a glass eye or display a knack for 2-minute farts. The best, or worst depending on your point of view, move on to the second round. This is where the potential for violence comes in. The men are paired and each given 2 minutes to level the most vulgar, hair-curling insults they can think of at each other. The first man to resort to threats, or, as in most cases, throws a punch, loses. And it goes on until you're left with the biggest asshole in the city, usually sporting a black eye or missing a tooth or two. Some would call it brutal, some disgusting, but most places I've been in my life, it's called Friday night. And that's when there's nothing but pride on the line. With this much booze and cash involved, these boys' attention won't be anywhere but the contest. Whatever Elaine is, she knows what's going on, knows the situation. For the moment, at least, it's out of her control. How much attention you think you're going to get now, hon? I say with a smile that gets wiped off my face within half a second. She doesn't change, not from a woman to a beast or anything like that, but her face fills with rage, like a bad mood became a mask. I wish I could say I saw her move, but I felt it before my eyes had any idea what was going on. I draw the Derringer, but before I can get it level, Elaine is face to face with me. That tiny, delicate hand of hers grabbing my wrist, wrenching it painfully to the side. I try to reach out with my left hand, throw her to the ground maybe, but there isn't a chance. It wasn't so much she beat me to the punch. She was so quick I may as well just given her my hand. Her breath is rotten citrus. Her eyes turn to black pools swirled with gray. No one notices us. My plan is biting me in the ass. Her mouth starts to widen, teeth seeming to melt like wax into short fangs. She wrenches my wrist further. A sharp pain that would make arthritis jealous makes its way up my forearm. Now, I've fought in a lot of places. Cities, towns, 3-tent camps. Any spot men congregate can turn into a battlefield if times get bad enough. One piece of advice that was given to me back when Dirk was young is that in a gunfight, you stay away from a wall. Most folks, they think a bullet makes a hole and that's that. But it's a hell of a lot more complicated than that. I won't bore you with the details, but when a bullet hits a hard surface, anyone around it is having a bad day. The bullet itself and whatever it's hitting spray back with damn near the punch of the round itself. As my arm feels like it's going to tear away from my body, I hope a floor is just as good as a wall. I point the tiny pistol downwards and fire. It's oddly silent, drowned out by the sounds of a few dozen of the drunkest men you've ever seen cussing for 3 months' wage. A dime-sized piece of the floorboards chips away. The thing with the skin of a woman lets me go was a half dozen fragments of God knows what embeds themselves in her calf. Gray smoke briefly rises from the pinholes, and I look at her face. For a second, shock, then a deep hatred that makes me actually consider putting my hands up and surrender. Not that I was given a chance. She throws me like I was an annoying cat. One hand grabbed me by the collar, the other by the belt. I'm tumbling through the tables and chairs, smashing every part of my body as I fly out the front door of the saloon. Now, I'm not stupid enough to try and get my bearings. I run, as fast as my aging knees will allow, hoping to get to the jail and throw enough crap in front of the doors to hold out till Andy gets back. What I expect Andy to do, I don't know. But a man doesn't make his best plans on the run from his life from something that might not be able to die. I don't bother to look back as I run, flat out into an alley. I hear her footfalls, rapid enough they sound like muffled gunfire or an overzealous woodpecker. My heart is already running rough, and this beast is a hell of a lot faster than I am. I'm tossing garbage pails, planks, any debris I can get in her way, trying to slow her up, but she doesn't miss a beat. Stays close enough I can feel sharp claws graze my back. I begin to think she might be toying with me, and quickly shake that out of my skull. If I'm right, I'll know soon enough. Instinct kicks in. I hop, curling my already aching leg up, trying to draw the scatter gun, quickly turn and fire. She slaps the gun quicker than I can track, with no more effort than swatting a fly. My shot goes wide and high, doing nothing more than ruining some cedar siding. I'm already off balance, and she bull rushes over me, that live form seeming to weigh as much as a donkey. I hit the ground hard, but fear drives me back to my feet, scrambling the other direction as she tries to reverse her own course. I'm running blind now. The dark night, the lingering booze, and my fear all combine to make sure I have no idea exactly where I am. I hesitate a moment as I exit to a street I try to recognize. I don't see the empty barrel. I feel it first. My vision blurs and I'm stumbling like those miners I left in the saloon. Blood pours down my back, a 3-inch gash on the back of my head. The barrel skids and spins to a stop in the thoroughfare. I hold the wall with my left hand. My vision is going black at the edges, but I can see Elaine casually walking down the alley. Her hands tipped with long, wicked-looking claws, scraping the wood on the sides of the building with a squealing, screaming noise. She's laughing, maybe 10, maybe 20 feet away. It's hard to tell. Now I do put up my hands. I'm done, I say, my words short as they are, slurred and slow. Safeties on firearms are for children and men that can't hold their liquor. Not being either, I remove them from my double barrel about 10 minutes after owning it. I drop it with a little backspin. One of us is catching some buckshot. All I can do is hope it's her. I'd like to close my eyes, let death sneak up on me if I'm the one drawing the short straw. But if I'm not, I might not have much more than a blink to take advantage of my opportunity. I haven't been the most religious man, but I suppose putting my life on the line for the most important cause in the country's history got me at least one favor with the Almighty. Because when that shotgun hit the dirt, the barrel was pointed right at Elaine's chest. Her chest is suddenly a ruin of purple blood and splintered bone as the shotgun barks orange flame. Gray smoke spews out of the wound as she staggers around, toppling crates, barrels, and other junk piled in the alley. I put my back to one wall, trying as much as I can to focus on this dying creature. A bear with half a face will still tear your guts out. I assume this is a similar situation. But slowly, she starts to sink to her knees, then fall over, grasping at the ruin her chest has become. I stare at the body for 2 minutes, letting myself sink to a sitting position. My head is still foggy. I try to snap myself back to reality. Eventually, my heart slows, and I'm down to seeing just one of things. I stand, brushing the worst of the dust and gore from myself. I back away, never taking my eyes off her, when I feel a hand on my shoulder.
Everything okay, Kurt?
I hear Ollie say, "No thanks to you," I say, wiping a smear of blood from my mouth. I turn to my left, intending to first tell Ollie off, then get him to walk me back to the jail. But Ollie isn't there. That hand on my shoulder, though. I feel like the world starts to go in slow motion. My eyes start to slowly pan up my arm. No one is standing beside me. On my shoulder is a large hand, clad in a white kid leather glove. It ends in a yellowed fork of bone, as if it leapt from someone's body and decided to start a life of its own. I feel the horror wash over me like a wave, but I realize something. It's funny. The hand squeezes and I start to laugh. First a chuckle, then a rising storm of stomach-cramping mirth. I try to swat it away, to pry it off, but I'm too busy laughing, holding my splitting sides and trying to stay on my feet. Footsteps, slow and heavy, with a high-pitched chuckle like an opium fiend 2 days into a bender. I'm on the ground, throat raw from laughing, pretty sure I've broken a rib and more coming soon. Nothing is natural but the sounds coming from me. I haven't lost my mind. Something has taken it. And that something comes walking up from out of the shadows. It's the leader of the horde, all 10 feet of him. Up close, he's a looming fucking nightmare of a thing, in a long duster made of some sort of short black fur. Charms from spent shells to shrunken heads are attached to every inch of the thing, rattling like the chains of a ghost as he walks. I hope to never see a kid's bones again, but I do. Each of his massive black boots are skull-capped and studded with finger bones. He reaches his right hand down, offering it to me. I look at his left arm, hand missing, coat hanging limply over the forearm. Like a spider, the hand on my shoulder skitters back to its owner. With a crunch, it's part of the white-faced, yellow-eyed thing again.
Oh, Curtis, I've been trying to reach you all day. Do walk with me for a moment or two.
The thing is high-pitched and sounds like a dandy. Foppish just about covers it, but it doesn't do justice to how much that sound coming from its body sets my blood cold. A stirring from the alley. Lane starts to rise, hurt but somehow still alive and kicking. She looks to me and starts to walk forward, a dull growl rising in her.
Go clean yourself up, darling. You look an absolute disgrace.
The monster says casually. Elaine replies with a growl, not to him but to me. She keeps walking forward.
Go home or fucking die.
The monster suddenly sounds like a lunatic 2 bottles in, dark, growling, and violent, to the point of spraying thick yellow spit all over its pointed, scarred chin. Elaine shrinks back and melts into the shadows, never taking her eyes off me till the last second. The creature wipes the thick, grease-smelling spit from his face, its voice back to that almost southern dandy twang.
I'd say good help is hard to find, but I'm sure you know all about that, Curtis. Do come for a walk with me. We've ever so much to talk about.
It's not asking. I've got a barn full of fuck you for any one of you saying, I'd have just tried to shoot it in the head. First, no you wouldn't. Second, if you did, you'd be an idiot. You don't survive as a soldier without understanding when fighting is useless. And you don't make yourself useful without figuring out how to make the best of any situation. It's a death march wearing the mask of a casual stroll. He stays silent till we get to the edge of his camp. Up close, the smell threatens to make me gag. The sights, almost too much to take in all at once.
If I promise you come out of this alive, can I be assured of your full attention? Enough to pass a message on, at least.
It asks casually, hands folded behind his back. I think we both know I'm in no position to refuse any assurance you're offering, but I would prefer this to be a parlay instead of a pyre, if you catch my drift. I reply, keeping my tone as respectful as I can. The thing cackles like I just invented the joke. I sound louder than the 5 scored drunks from earlier, louder than should be possible. It cuts off like a snuffed candle.
Oh my, aren't we the quick-witted little Yankee? Yes, Curtis, as much as I can. I'll keep this little interaction confined to what I want known and who I want to know it. Michael Beauregard, at your service.
The creature bows, deftly taking off its stovepipe hat, revealing a long tangle of greasy black hair. I could try to tell you every horror that I saw. I could spend a few 100 pages trying to turn a soldier's words into descriptions that would do this camp any justice, but I'm a simple man. It was hell, designed by someone who really liked themselves a circus. Andy, he'd probably be able to tell you every snipe and bogan I saw. Be able to tell you what they eat, where they shed, and how to put them down. Not me, though. I just saw every Torah fable, every legend I've heard all chomping down, and anything got too close, Michael would shove through a wall or into an alley, but never quick enough that I didn't feel a second away from losing life or limb. Open fires raged. Bodies, or parts of them anyway, used as decoration or being prepared as food.
Curtis, son, I got called here by a friend of mine, all in just a dizzy because some old boy was slinging his member around, trying to give orders when he had no right to.
Michael starts. We pass a loose group of limbless gray things wearing head-to-toe brown robes. In the brief flashes of light, I could see nothing in the hoods but rows upon rows of long pointed teeth.
So I come down here hoping to erase a debt and maybe have a little bit of fun. And what do I find?
I assume he was asking a question that didn't require an answer. Don't assume, kids. The slap rocks me on my feet and sends fresh blood coming from my mouth.
They don't teach you manners where you come from, Curtis?
Michael says, just a hint of that other voice sneaking in, turning my name into a growl. Sorry, Michael. I thought that was a rhetorical question, assuming I'm using that word right. You found Andy, is what I'm guessing. I say, try not to sound like a whooped schoolboy.
And there is that northern intellect, Curtis. I did find Andy. I don't know how much you've been told, but Andy is very valuable to me. Someone like him is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of find. And men like me, we live for a very long time.
He lets the sentiment hang in the air. I know what he's asking. I hold my tongue. Try to keep my eyes peeled. Find something, maybe an ammo dump, or wherever the hell they store their food. Some weak point to attack if I get out of here. But if they had anything like that, I couldn't pick it out from the altars, garbage piles, or mounds of body parts. But something did catch my eye. I don't want to compare apples to oranges, but I'd like to think I've seen what it looks like when one group of people treat another like property. Maybe that doesn't translate, but I noticed something interesting as I'm taken for a walking tour inside a psychopath's brain. Let's now call these things travelers. That's what I'm going to call the members of this freak show in general. One group of travelers stuck out like a sore thumb to me. They were about as tall as a man, 6-foot burlap sacks, stained with blood, dirt, and God knows what else. They moved around in a stumble, fluids leaking from the bags. At first I thought they may have just been people stuffed into the sacks, but as I looked closer, limbs would have been in the wrong places. Their movement was all wrong. I didn't see them gleefully tearing people apart, smoking pipes full of what looked like bone shards or preaching in demonic tongues to rapt audiences of travelers. No, when I see these things, they're moving garbage, repairing dilapidated shacks or tents, being on the receiving end of abuse that would kill a stout man in the prime of his life. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something that can save my town. Either way, it's something to think about, other than where this situation is going. We stop at a massive throne, ringed by massive lumping flesh creatures, holding what may be spears or maybe some kind of flintlock rifle. The torches around it burn a harsh white or purple, giving the entire area the color of a fresh bruise. Michael is, in not so subtle way, showing me exactly who is in charge here.
I'm sure you understand the position I'm in. I've no want to get involved in some long, drawn-out slaughter that wastes my time and your lives. Nothing you have besides Andy I want. So I say you get a bunch of your little Yankees together, get that old boy Andy hogtied, and drop him right off at our gate. You'll find us gone upon the morning, leaving nothing but the scent of roses in our wake. You seem like a reasonable man, Curtis. What say we make a gentleman's agreement right now? Then I can stop using your townsfolk to make a point, and you can go get a full night's sleep.
His tone is aloof, carefree, as if the lives of these people, or his, hold no value beyond utility. I think for a while on my reply. Stop me if I'm out of line, but I don't think my answer matters much. If I tell you sure, I'll dirt road Andy, bring him by like a Christmas hen. You'll know I'm nothing more than a turncoat, just as likely to sell you out as him once I'm free. If I were to tell you no, it'd be no different of a situation than we are now. Me at your whim. So, let's get down to brass tacks, Michael. What's the real plan here? Michael chuckles. Not the insane fit from before, just a surprised laugh.
Smart boy.
For a Yankee.
I'm gonna send you back, Curtis, but we both know I can't send you back home. See, you are the only leverage I have, and I must impress upon Andrew the seriousness of the situation. I'm no monster, though. You've been a gentleman. You can choose what you lose. I'd make sure it's a valuable sacrifice, though. I don't like to be shorted.
My heart is starting to flutter. Remaining calm on the outside is easy, but pure fear threatens to overwhelm me, take me from consciousness as I speak. Well, this isn't the first time I've been caught by folks that want to do me harm. I reach into my mouth, pulling out a set of dentures that replace the teeth from the upper right side of my mouth. But they remembered something I'd put to you. No matter who wins or loses this war, if the wind blows the right way, there might come a time when in the middle of my last battle, I've got the upper hand on you. Unlikely, I know. But if it does happen, a man missing some teeth is a lot more forgiving than missing his hand or his pecker. War's random, Michael. Can you guarantee you won't ever need me to stay my hand? My words seem like they're coming from far away.
Rousing speech, Curtis. It's the sand, not the threat, that makes me honored to follow through with your request.
The grin he gives me as he grabs me by the neck will never leave my mind. Those southern boys, they didn't treat me gentle. But Michael was to torture what Jesse James is to crime. Each tooth was cracked and shattered in the socket. Only when the entirety of the remaining top teeth were compacted splinters, he brought out a thin pair of purple tweezers, twisting and yanking each splinter out, and commenting at length before pulling out the next. He does me the courtesy of searing the freely bleeding sockets with a branding iron. The entire time, holding a crystal pot of smelling salts under my nose, making sure I don't miss a second. One of those bad creatures roughly drags me back to town. A few wandering drunkards caught the side of the thing dragging me to jail. The two of us leaving parallel trails of blood, but were too shocked or apathetic to do anything. The next day, first I find that Ollie, as I thought, was killed, ripped open and displayed like a hog in the middle of town. Second, Andy rides into town on some thing that looked halfway between a draft horse and a spider. I catch him up on my tail, using this same damn light box, as talking was just shy of impossible. But Andy, he says there's something that might put a smile on my face. And yeah, he said it in those damn words. We ride a couple hours out of town to a small section of sand dunes. I look around, seeing nothing, and write as such to Andy on the light box he gave me. He smiles, still unable to look at my face without wincing, then whistles a high-pitched noise and the sand starts to shift and pour. I won't try to get too specific, but the things that started to crawl out of the sand. I'm sure Andy will fill the blanks in for you. Other than they were small, no taller than someone's waist at most. There were hundreds of them, maybe even 1,000, all crawling and dragging their bodies, made of bone, wood, and steel, or in most cases all three.
We got an army, Kurt. We are in no fucking way out of the woods, but at least we have an axe now,
he says with a smile that I don't begrudge him.
Well, I didn't have to talk like this for 2 hours, so it's kind of nice just doing it at the end. Thank you for listening, and you can handle another horror story, right?